Welcome back, book talk enthusiasts, to another exciting episode of Dragons and Spaceships, where we shine a spotlight on all the sci-fi and fantasy books that are taking the platform by a storm. I'm your host, Brandi, and today we are going to talk about Kristen Ciccarelli's Heartless Hunter, The Crimson Moth, book number 1. But before we get into this book, as always, let's take a look at the Realm and Galactic rankings of trending books this week. This week, we have 4 books that I want to go over. This first book we're going to look into is called Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenaah. Hopefully I said that correctly. This is a dystopian novel compared to The Hunger Games, set in a brutal world where prisoners fight for survival. Next, we have In Ascension by Martin McInnes, a speculative fiction exploring the deep-sea mysteries and human evolution. Third, we have The Mountain in the Sea by Ray Naylor, a unique sci-fi tale involving octopus intelligence and AI. 4 is Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh, a space opera about revenge and redemption. Now, back to our book, The Heartless Hunter. This YA fantasy romance is filled with witches, witch hunters, and forbidden love, and a world torn apart by revolution. Buckle up because we're about to break it all down, and just a heads up, spoilers ahead. If you haven't read the book yet, feel free to hit pause, read this amazing book, and come back and join us for the conversation. So let's start with the basics. Heartless Hunter is the first book in the Crimson Moth duology, set in a world where witches were once rulers but now hunted after a revolution. Our protagonist, Rune, is not just any witch by day. She hides her identity as a shallow, carefree socialite, but by night she becomes the Crimson Moth, a vigilante helping witches escape persecution. The stakes are raised when she starts playing a dangerous game of cat and mouse with Gideon Sharp, a witch hunter who becomes both her enemy and, of course, her love interest. It is an intense enemies to lovers story full of deception, secrets, and some truly high-stake moments. So let's dive into what makes this book such a captivating read. Let's first talk about characters. Let's talk about Rune first. She's a really interesting character, strong, cunning, and deeply conflicted. Rune's guilt over the revolution and the loss of her fellow witches drives much of her actions. She's not just trying to survive, she's trying to save her people, even if that means getting closer to her enemy Gideon. There's a constant tension in Rune between her desire for justice and the dangerous game she's playing. One wrong move could cost her everything. But what makes Rune so compelling is her vulnerability beneath that hardened exterior, something Gideon eventually sees, and that's where the romance really takes root. But now let's talk about Gideon. He's the perfect embodiment of morally conflicted character. As a witch hunter, he's loyal to the cause, but his feelings for Rune complicate everything. It's that classic push and pull between duty and desire. Gideon suspects Rune is the Crimson Moth, but as he gets to know her, his suspicions and his emotions are constantly at war. This inner conflict makes him a great counterpart to Rune's more direct approach to survival. One of the strongest themes in Heartless Hunter is the idea of power, who has it, how it's used, and the consequences of losing it. Witches once had all the power and now they're being hunted. This shift in power dynamic creates a world where no one is safe and trust is hard to come by. Rune's dual identity as a socialite and vigilante plays into this theme beautifully. She uses her power, her charm, and her connections by day and her magic by night. But both come with serious risks. There's also this underlying theme of guilt. Rune feels responsible for her people and the guilt that drives her to take incredible risks. But what I love is that it's not just Rune who struggles with guilt. Gideon also wrestles with it. And as he gets closer to Rune, he realizes that maybe he's not on the right side of the conflict. This adds so much depth to their relationship because they're both torn between their personal missions and their feelings for each other. Kristen Ciccarelli's world building in Heartless Hunter is top-notch. The post-revolutionary world where witches are hunted gives a dystopian feel to the setting, and the atmosphere of constant surveillance and danger adds to the intensity of the story. What I found fascinating was the way witches were identified by their scars and how their once great power has been diminished. It's not just about magic, it's about survival in a world where being different could get you killed. The magic system itself is subtle but impactful. Witches have to hide their abilities, which makes it even more dangerous when Rune uses her powers as the Crimson Moth. It's a world where every choice matters, and that level of risk keeps readers on the edge of their seats. Okay, let's talk about romance. Heartless Hunter delivers one of my favorite tropes, enemies to lovers, but with such a unique twist. Rune and Gideon are on opposite sides of the conflict, which her being a witch and he's a witch hunter. The tension between them is palpable throughout the book. Their relationship starts off as a strategic move for both of them. What makes their romance so interesting is that they're constantly lying to each other while also falling for one another. It's like watching a slow motion train wreck and you can't look away. What I loved most about their dynamic is neither of them is wholly good or bad. They're both morally gray characters who make questionable choices. This adds so much depth to their romance because you're constantly wondering if they'll betray each other or if they can truly be together. So what are readers saying about Heartless Hunter? Overall, the response seems like it has been very positive. Readers love the character dynamics, the world building, and of course, the romance. A lot of people are hooked by the enemies to lovers storyline and the forbidden magic that drives the plot. However, some readers did mention that the pacing slows a bit in the middle of the book, especially during some of the socialite scenes. But for most, the tension between Rune and Gideon more than make up for any of the slow moments. And let's not forget, this is the first book in the series. The cliffhanger at the end has us all eager for the next installment. And I can't wait for the next one. So would I recommend Heartless Hunter? Absolutely. Especially if you're a fan of fantasy romance with high stakes and complex characters. Rune and Gideon's story is one you'll be thinking about long after you finish the book. And the themes of power and betrayal and love give it a lot of emotional weight. And with that cliffhanger, I think it's safe to say that book 2 is going to raise those stakes even higher. I can't wait to see what's next for the Crimson Moth and her dangerous love affair with a witch hunter. Don't leave yet though, because before we go, we have our 2 other segments to go over. First, we have Dragon's Roar. In today's Dragon's Roar, we are diving into the latest drama or news in the book industry. We recently got some very exciting news that the fans of the Shatter Me series, Tara Mafi, announced on Today.com that there is going to be a spin-off series called Watch Me. The new series called The New Republic will be released April 2025. Next, we have the Sorcerer's Scrolls, where we look at some forthcoming fables and quests you can embark on soon. A highly anticipated book releasing in October 2024 is A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. This sapphic fantasy romance follows a sharp-tongued folklorist who teams up with her academic rival to solve the mysterious murder of their mentor. This novel is known for its lush world-building, academic intrigue, and romantic tension, making it a must-read for fans of Saft's previous work like A Far Wilder Magic. A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft is set to be released on October 1st, 2024. So don't forget to go grab your copy and let us know if you think it should be something we cover on the podcast. Well, that's it for today's episode of Dragons and Spaceships. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the realms and the starships. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into The Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. Don't forget to find us on social media for more quick and engaging book reviews and recommendations. Until next time, happy reading, stay curious, and keep exploring the fantastical and futuristic, and may your TBR pile never stop growing.